pleasure of having with me an expert in terms of IT security from our parent company, which is ManageEngine. My name is Themba Nkosi. I'm from the South African reseller and partner company. We deal with primarily ManageEngine, and we support our local customers in terms of the IT security space, IT automation, compliance. And today I have with me a very special guest all the way from, is it Chennai?
Yeah, Chennai.
All the way from Chennai, and she will kindly take us through her knowledge, having 20 years experience as the head of information security at ManageEngine, which is a global company, as we all know. And she's worked on a number of different security components, mainly cloud security, application security, risk management, and data security. And with that, I'd like to get into the conversation that we're about to have, which is around some of the thinking behind what we've experienced with the pandemic, some of the trends that we can see with IT security. So Deepa, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity, and it has been my pleasure to join this conversation with you.
So one of the things that, as I've mentioned in your intro, is that you are the head of IT security within ManageEngine, which is a global company. What are the concerns that you have seen with regards to data security, and how do people ensure that their data is actually secured?
Okay. So as a security professional, the frequent attacks and the sophistication of attacks are challenges we face in our everyday roles. So if you think information security is a constant and consistent challenge any business is going to face. And specifically to data security, data drives all that we do. This is true for any business. And we need to apply the security and the privacy principles in the various stages of the data lifecycle, starting from how data gets created, how it is stored in various formats, how it is shared with different third-party entities, and finally it gets destroyed. So in any organization, including us, as a security organization, we have concerns on sometimes we lack the visibility of what data gets created, where it resides, and who has access. So there is a lot of over-provisioning of access, too many privileged users. When people move within the organization, we don't remove the privilege, thereby increasing the attack surface. And now we have the BYOD, so bring your own device. So whereby your personal data, your business data gets access from your personal devices, thereby increasing your data proliferation. And when you think about data security, we have to take a multi-layered approach. It's just start with the basics, have a complete data inventory and classification strategy, and have strong authentication controls, have granular access controls based on least privilege. You give access only to people who need to have the access, and have encryption of sensitive data, both at rest, in motion, and in use. And periodic backup is very essential to handle any data loss scenarios. And we also need to have a defined retention period. Any unused or inactive data, we should make sure to delete in a very secure way. So these will be the methodologies I would say for the basic data security aspect.
Very interesting. I think one of the key points that you've touched on is the fact that that is normal operation within the confines of people that are coming into the office to work. But we've seen now with the pandemic, which has taken the world aback in terms of the way people work. How would you look at the way that data security is now handled within the pandemic, seeing that a lot of people are now either working from home or working remotely? What would be the take in terms of that in line with what we're seeing with the pandemic?
Yeah, so the last year, 2020, it has been a unprecedented time of change, right? So every organization would have had some business continuity plans, procedures, but I think this was one time they were all put into a real test in such a large scale. So like nobody expected such a large scale of endpoints moving out of the perimeter of the boundary. So when you take, I think 2020 starting, we had to, the first thing was to enable the remote workforce without impacting the business productivity. And remote workforce security has been the top concern throughout that year. When you take our organization in specific, we were early cloud adopters. So all our business application runs on Zoho suite of SaaS services. So starting from CRM, your support desk, mail, collaboration, and chat tools. And remote working is also not something new. We had a few employees working full-time remote even well before the pandemic. But even that being said, transitioning from a 5% remote workforce to a 95% remote workforce, that is a drastic change. And ours is a very heavy R&D company with a huge developer base count. So we have the development infrastructure like the code repositories, the build pipelines, the test infrastructure, and the voice telephony infrastructure for our support desk. These were all still on-premise, and we had to repurpose them to enable secure remote working. So these were some of the major things. So another aspect I want to touch upon is the human element. So in security community, we say that you never underestimate the training aspects.
Yes.
So we have to contextually and continuously educate this decentralized workforce on the present dangers, like the lot of phishing attacks, social engineering attacks surrounding the pandemic, ransomware attacks, and the dangers of your unprotected home networks. So you give the employees the contextual learning and the situation awareness, which is very essential in this remote working scenarios.
And that's very key in terms of security, is the awareness component, because in as much as we are all learning to live with the new normal, which is a hybrid of working from home, working from the office, we must still be cognizant of the fact that there are breaches that are possible, there are attacks that are out there, and we must just be cognizant and be aware, as you rightfully say. With regards to you touched on the point on decentralization. You have some components that are now cloud-based, and you have some components that are still on-prem to a large extent. In terms of the hybrid nature of the way things are going now, how does that impact on the security, having to look at both the cloud security and infrastructure security on the on-prem architecture that we are currently used to?
Yeah, that's correct. So possibly we started 2021 with a hybrid in every way. So we have on-prem, we have cloud, we have legacy solutions, we have cutting-edge technologies, all within a single corporate environment. We'll have multiple cloud vendors also being adopted in a single organization, and add to that the hybrid workforce. So some people working full-time remote, some coming to office part-time. So it is full of a hybrid way in which we will move forward. So with respect to this decentralization, again, I would touch upon a few of the aspects, like unprotected home networks. That is going to be a major concern. So in our home network, we have a lot of devices with which has a very less security posture than your enterprise devices. So hacking home to hacking office can become a reality. Your bad actors exploit this home network to pivot into your work computer and get into your organization network. And then we have systems which miss the patching cycles. So even in India, there were cases where, like with rural areas with network descriptions and low bandwidth, the laptops didn't connect to your enterprise patch management system in time, so they missed the patching cycle. So the real-time threat visibility that is required for the security team was missing. So because the remote devices were not available to be running a vulnerability scan or something. And then for this hybrid cloud model, so the most essential thing for the security team is to have a central orchestrated framework. So because see, you will adopt infrastructure as a service, AWS, GCP, and we have various SaaS vendors. Each of these people are going to have security controls defined in their own way. So the security team needs a central management and control framework through which they can push the policies uniformly, or else this will be a nightmare which can result in misconfigurations and data breaches.
Yeah, that's very true. And I suppose the thing that comes to mind when you're describing that scenario of a hybrid approach is that there are trends when it comes to cybersecurity that people must be cognizant of. I go back to awareness, is what has been prevalent throughout 2020 because of the pandemic and even prior to that. But now moving forward to 2021 and beyond that, what are some of the things that as people that are decision makers, information security officers, or even the CIOs that need to be aware of in terms of where cybersecurity is moving within this year and the years going forward?
Yeah, so I will look at it from two aspects. I would say first, secure the cloud, secure the edge.
Yeah.
So we see that the cloud adoption is going to increase. So there was a recent survey which says that at least 95% of the organization have some sort of cloud presence. And in coming years, it is going to increase and more critical workloads are going to get into the cloud. So it will be a combination of private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid model. With respect to secure the cloud, I would say organizations need to understand, because I have seen some organizations where in the step of the initial cloud transformation journey, they misunderstand that when you move to cloud, you're outsourcing the security risk to the cloud provider. That is not true. Yeah. So yeah, cloud provider provides the security of the cloud infrastructure, but as a customer, you are going to be responsible for who has access to the cloud, how they access the cloud, and the data protection of the data which you put in the cloud. So this is one important thing. So there's a shared responsibility between the cloud provider and the customer. So this is with respect to secure the cloud. The other end is secure your edge. So the endpoint management and security is going to play a key role with this remote working model going to continue even in the future. So because we need the visibility and control of what happens in each endpoint, because now the model is not going to be like all your traffic that gets backhauled from the endpoint to your network and then to the cloud. That is not going to scale. So from the endpoint, we directly connect to the cloud services. So your older perimeter-based security controls are not going to work. So in that case, it is imperative that we have a complete visibility and control of the endpoint. And so endpoint security and management is imperative. So secure the cloud, secure the edge. And one thing I want to connect between these two is the adoption of the zero trust architecture. So zero trust in simple terms, they say like never trust, always verify. So it is like irrespective of whether the user is in the internal network or external network, he's coming from a corporate device or a personal device. Assume everything is hostile unless proven otherwise. So you use various risk scores to determine whether you will allow access to that particular resource. So it is about securing the cloud, securing the edge, and adopting zero trust.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might be, this is now towards end users, might be thinking, if there's zero trust to begin with, that's the bottom level of starting in terms of how the company views you. But in terms of security, you need to be mindful of even the internal employees, which brings me to the user behavior analytics. As humans, we're creatures of habit. So how does user behavior analytics, I'll get it right, and managed machine learning aid us in being able to give insights to possible data security and data leak within the organization?
Yeah, so insider threat is one of a very big aspect of an organization's cybersecurity posture. We always keep thinking about the external hackers, but we don't give much importance to what is happening inside. So if you consider about the older security tools, it is basically it will alert you on security incidents based on some predefined rules or threshold values. These are very good to catch some known threats or known attack patterns, but not very good for any unknown threats or even for insider threats. So now here comes the what I call as indicators of behaviors. So if you think through, identities can be faked, but not our actions or behaviors cannot be easily faked. So Deepa, as a user, my identity might get leaked through various breaches, but how my behavior or actions I perform on the systems are going to be difficult to fake. So these indicators of behaviors, they play a very important role in this threat detection. So let us take, for example, a DB engineer accessing the database servers and executing queries, or a network engineer logging to a firewall. These are expected behaviors for his job role. Yes. Similarly, a marketing manager doing these is going to be an anomaly. But how do we now capture these when the infrastructure is complex? You have thousands of servers, thousands of apps, and thousands of users. You can't have predefined rules set. So ML comes to help here. So with unsupervised algorithms, like you don't even need to give a prior input model to predict. That is very important application of AI in security. So if you think about security behaviors, hackers find enormous ways to hack into systems. So it is very difficult to model that behavior, but it is easy to model what a normal user will do. So, and then if there is any anomaly from that, you alert the security team. This is the base of user and entity behavior analytics. So example of Deepa only at these particular time periods every day, but over the weekend, she logs in at these times. Over the month end, she logs in. So your system learns more about yourself and then alerts you if there is a time-based login anomaly. Or a more case like for an insider threat, if there is a user accessing a large amount of data, downloading large amount of data, all these even can be cached with the older security tools. But how do you now catch an insider who is trying to download small chunks of data? That no tool is going to capture based on threshold value. But an ML-based algorithm, unsupervised learning algorithm, can capture such scenarios. So these are some ways where ML and AI can improve and help us more improvement in threat detection.
Yeah, which is fair, and I think you've touched on a very good point that we have certain things that we can't fake, and then those things we can pick up with machine learning and user behavior analytics. I just want to go back to a point that you mentioned in terms of what I would see as an end-to-end security view of your endpoints being secure, your cloud being secure, and then the zero trust component that you spoke about. As a way of putting it all together, what would be the recommendation that you would give for businesses that want to have that end-to-end security in terms of making sure that everything is covered both from an internal point and from an external point? I think this is a nice way to summarize from the people that know about security and the people that are now intrigued by what is possible in terms of making the environment very secure.
I would again say start zero trust journey. Even in our personal experience, I would say this zero trust journey or even any security improvement journey, it is going to be a long marathon. It is not a short sprint.
Yes.
It's not a single bullet to solve and implement and then forget about it. So even with zero trust adoption, the way we went is take it in a phased approach as small projects, because this is going to even take years to complete and it requires collaboration of your entire business unit. It is not something that the security team can implement in silo. So even in zero trust, we just started with the base of having a robust identity and management solutions, have a single sign-on, have strong multi-factor authentications implemented, just not for your privileged users, but for your complete workforce. And then go to the adaptive access control, means depending upon what device you log in, what data you're accessing, and from which network, home network or your office network you're logging in, derive a trust score, and then based on this, allow the access. So this phased approach of implementing and showing value to the business organization, because that is also important. We can't have a big budget to implement security and have all the tools. It is more about the methodology where we get into, more than the technology tools. I would say the methodology of how we model the security organization, that is going to be important.
Thank you very much, Deepa, for that very insightful view of what we are now seeing as the trends in terms of security, what's been happening over the last year with the pandemic, and a look into what we can possibly see with cybersecurity with regards to the trends that are coming up. With that, I'd like to thank Deepa, our expert in terms of security, and we will have a Q&A session within a few minutes.